The sun was setting over a small town in the UK, and Ruth walked home from the clinic where she worked as a health worker. She had spent the whole day helping sick people and making sure they felt better. Ruth was known for her big heart and kind nature. She had grown up in this town where everyone knew each other. Her mother was a schoolteacher, and her father worked hard on their small farm. From a young age, Ruth's parents taught her that helping others was the best gift anyone could give. She loved making people smile, whether by sharing food, giving medicine, or simply listening to their worries. As she walked, she noticed a man sitting under a tree near the town's entrance. His clothes were dirty, and he looked weak. Something about him caught Ruth's attention. He wasn't begging for food or asking for help. He just sat there, staring at the ground. Ruth hesitated for a moment. It was getting dark, and she knew helping a stranger could be risky. But her heart wouldn't let her walk away. She took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Hello, are you okay?" she asked gently. The man looked up, and Ruth saw sadness in his eyes. He didn't speak, just shook his head. Ruth could see that he needed help. "My name is Ruth," she said softly. "You can come with me. I will give you something to eat and a place to rest." The man hesitated but then nodded slowly. Ruth helped him stand, and together they walked to her small home at the edge of town. When they arrived, Ruth led him inside and gave him a chair to sit on. Her house was simple but warm. "I'll get you some food," she said and went to the kitchen. As she cooked, she kept thinking about the man. Who was he? What had happened to him? When Ruth returned with a plate of rice and beans, the man was sitting quietly, staring at the floor. "Eat," she said kindly, placing the plate in front of him. "It's not much, but it will help." The man nodded and started eating. Ruth watched him closely. His hands trembled as he held the spoon, and she realized he hadn't eaten in a long time. After a few minutes, the man put the spoon down and looked at her. "Thank you," he said softly. "My name is David. I have been on the streets for months." Ruth's heart ached as she listened to his story. David had once been a skilled carpenter. He made beautiful furniture for people in nearby towns. He had a wife and a young son. But one day, his wife and child died in a terrible accident. The pain was too much for him to bear. He stopped working, fell into sadness, and soon lost everything: his job, his home, and his will to live. "I thought there was nothing left for me," David said, his voice shaking. "I walked from town to town, not knowing where to go. I've been living on the streets, but I don't want to live like this anymore." Ruth felt tears in her eyes. She reached out and held David's hand. "I'm so sorry, David," she said softly. "No one should have to go through this alone. You are not alone anymore." For the first time in a long while, David felt a small spark of hope inside him. Ruth's kindness reminded him of something he had forgotten: human connection. Over the next few weeks, Ruth continued to help David. She gave him food and shelter. She introduced him to people in town who needed small jobs done. Slowly, David started rebuilding his life. He fixed broken chairs and tables for the villagers. With each job, he regained his strength and confidence. The people in town started trusting him again, and David felt like he belonged. As time passed, David found himself thinking about Ruth more and more. Every time she smiled, his heart felt warm. She was kind, smart, and beautiful. He knew he wanted to be more than just her friend. One afternoon, while they were talking outside her house, David gathered the courage to ask, "Ruth, do you have a boyfriend?" Ruth smiled shyly and shook her head. "No, I don't." David's heart pounded with excitement. He hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Ruth, I really like you," he said. "I've been thinking about it for a while. Would you be my girlfriend?" Ruth looked at him with wide eyes. She had always liked David too. He was strong, kind, and hardworking. She thought for a moment, then smiled. "Yes, I will be your girlfriend." David's face lit up with happiness. They both laughed, feeling a rush of joy. In that moment, everything felt perfect. One evening, under the shining stars, David took Ruth to the tree where they first met. The moonlight made her face glow, and he knew she was the one he wanted to spend his life with. His heart pounded as he held her hands and said, "Ruth, you have brought so much joy into my life. You make every day brighter. I can't imagine my future without you." Ruth's eyes sparkled with surprise and happiness. David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. With slightly shaking hands, He opened it, revealing a beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked. Ruth gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, yes, I will," she exclaimed. David slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced tightly. It was a moment of love and promise, one they would cherish forever. Their wedding was a beautiful celebration. Family and friends gathered to witness their love. The people in town, who had seen David's journey from sadness to happiness, cheered for them. As they stood together, hand in hand, Ruth and David knew they had found something special. Their love was built on kindness, trust, and hope. And as they danced under the soft glow of lanterns, they both knew that their story was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more interesting video.